Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. My name is Nick DeVito, president of the Mount Sinai School District Board of Education. Thank you for coming to tonight's town hall on the bond proposal for this year. We are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then being that tomorrow is September 11th, I ask that you please stand for a moment of silence after the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so it's great to see so many people here tonight. We obviously see and have heard that the communication is out there and people are aware of the bond, which is great. That was our number one thing, is to make sure that the community is fully aware. And we've had a previous meeting back in August. Have had other events at campus with some smaller groups as the school year started. Have had a lot of Q&A come in through social media, so definitely getting the word out there about this, and we're going to be addressing a bunch of those questions that have come in, and hopefully we're going to address a lot of your questions going through this evening before we even get to tonight's Q&A, just to give you a better idea of what we're looking to do. So first and foremost, we have Dr. Criscione with us. She is our superintendent. She'll be leading a majority of the presentation. Some other board members, we have John, Chuck, Christy with us. Thank you for being here. I'm going to put him on the spot. Where is he? Mr. Mike Guido. He is with us. He works with the school board and the school district as our architect. And then we have some various administrators with us as well, so thank you all for being here. Tonight is a night to make sure that you are fully informed and that we are fully transparent with you. We are not a board of trying to hide things and bury things in this bond. We are trying to present it as full and clear as possible. And there's a lot of questions, right? And we want to make sure all of those questions are answered so you can make a truly educated decision and support, hopefully we say support this bond as well. So why a bond? What is a bond? Why are we looking right now to do this bond? And why do we need this bond? And why is it so important that we do it now? How are the projects selected? What is the cost of the bond? How is that going to impact me as a homeowner? How is it going to impact the community? How long will that last? These are all things that we are hoping to answer for you this evening, and you leave here more comfortably. And we're also streaming online, so Mark is going to let us know if we have any questions that way as well. Hopefully we do. Hopefully it will be evident through Dr. Criscione's presentation in a couple of moments of why we selected the projects that we did. The board has spent 2 years, almost 2.5 years at this point, creating this bond. So this is not something that we just walked into and said, okay, what do we need to fix? How can we fix this? And let's just move forward and grab a bond and get monies from everybody, and let's just fix what we can quickly. Not at all. We've spent a lot of time on that. And we're going for the items that truly need attention. A lot of times you see when a school district comes forward to the community, there's a lot of need, but there's also a lot of wants. And I'll pat ourselves on the back and say we've done a pretty good job at taking those wants and shelving them, because the needs are so great that we need to address them, whether it be at the elementary school, the middle school, the high school, on campus. It's a needs bond of things that need to get done that we unfortunately don't have the luxury to do through our budget. We're limited to what we can do significantly. And this bond, as you'll see in a couple of minutes, will truly address the issues that are needs-based. There is no Board of Education or school administrative or staff that prioritizes the safety of our students and our staff. And a lot of times people get confused because they just think safety means, the security, right? Are the doors locked and is everybody safe for the day? But it's a whole lot more than that. It's about the students being in a safe and comfortable learning environment where there's not water leaking on their heads or they're washing their hands and the whole sink is shaking. So there's a lot more that goes into it, and that's really what we're focusing on. It is our goal that we have critical repairs done, that the safety of the students and the staff is at the utmost concern and is met, and that ultimately we enhance the educational experience in and out of the classroom, right? That's our goal for both the students and the staff, because the staff are educated too, working with our kids, and we want to make sure they feel that as well, in the classroom and out of the classroom, all right? From the second you pull into campus and drop off your kid, you want to feel they're getting out of that car and they're safe, all the way to the time you pick them up and you're on the way out and you're going home. And that's what we're trying to do here. So at this point, I am going to introduce Dr. Criscione, who will, I believe, is going to share a short little video and then go into depth about this, and then hopefully we'll answer your questions if they're not answered through the presentation, and we look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeVito. Just a note, later when there are questions, our board members will have microphones. We ask that you ask any questions you have into the microphone so that the people at home can hear them as well, and then we can respond to them appropriately, because we want to make sure people at home are also able to hear those questions. So just a brief video.
I have lived in Mount Sinai my entire life.
My entire life.
My entire life. I never left.
My kindergarten classroom was actually in the current superintendent's office.
I went to all 3 schools.
It was just such a phenomenal experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
As soon as I knew I wanted to be an educator, I knew I wanted to come back to Mount Sinai.
I really decided to become a teacher because of my teachers at Mount Sinai. I hope that my children have the same experience where they really love learning.
I'm just trying to pass that along to the next generation.
This place is like a storybook. Why wouldn't we want to raise our family here?
There is no place that I'd rather raise my family than Mount Sinai.
I love that all 3 buildings are on one campus.
There's really not many other places like it.
The school district functions as the epicenter of the whole community.
In Mount Sinai, our schools are the heart of our community, places where our children learn, grow, and prepare for a bright future. On September 25th, the Mount Sinai community will vote on a bond proposal designed to fund vital upgrades across our district so that we can continue providing the safe, modern, and inspiring environment our students deserve. These improvements include replacing aging roofs and windows, renovating bathrooms, updating playgrounds, repairing roadways, and enhancing our learning spaces, making them safer, more functional, and more welcoming. This vote is about so much more than infrastructure. It's about investing in the future of our children and preserving the legacy of our community. It's about fostering student achievement, igniting pride, and bringing us together as one community dedicated to excellence.
This is where our future starts. I just hope that we keep growing and developing.
The students are the future of Mount Sinai.
We want to better it for the next generation.
For the students who are going to be here 10 years from now, 20 years from now.
And ensures that we are truly the best in learning and living.
Mount Sinai, the best in learning and living.
The best in learning and living.
The best in learning and living.
Mount Sinai, the best in learning and living.
Mount Sinai, the best.
The best.
The best.
The best.
The best.
The best in learning and living.
Let's build a future that embodies the spirit of the best in learning and living for our Mount Sinai families, not only today, but for generations to come.
And I'd like to thank the staff who participated in that. Those are staff members that live here and chose to raise their families here because they love the district so much where they grew up. What I want to do is go over some main pieces about the bond and talk about some of the projects that we're looking at. Just as an overview, one of the reasons we had to come up with a bond is over the years, we needed many capital projects done. And in the past, we've been able to establish a capital reserve fund, save some of our funds to be able to fund some projects along the way over the years. But some projects have become too large to handle with the smaller capital funds reserve. We have, over the years, the last few years, the Board of Education and I, taken a list of projects That is something we have to, every 5 years to the state, we have to evaluate our building conditions and submit to the state, and looking at what projects have to be done. And over the years, we've been able to tick off quite a few things with our own capital reserve fund that comes from our general fund that we use without raising the taxpayers' bills. However, things on that list are too great to be able to fund through the capital reserves at this point. So things such as the entire roadway coming into the district from 25A up to the middle school, looking at the roof at the elementary school, the bathrooms at the elementary school and the middle school. Here are some pictures just to show you the conditions that we have been faced with over the years, and they've degraded over the years. Anyone who drives on campus knows that the bumps, people avoid the bumps and they drive on our grass. So our grass along the elementary school and the middle school has become a third roadway, basically. We're looking to reconstruct that roadway completely, to redesign it, still put in speed bumps so that nobody is speeding through the campus. That was the point of why they did that roadway in the first place. But certainly restructuring it, making the roadway go across the entire straightway and making more parking. We're finding more and more spaces are needed. We have parents coming in to pick up children more and more than we ever have. Less children are taking buses, and we need spaces for the parents to park. So we're finding that to be a struggle as well. Here are some other roadways. One of the other things that we've done in the past, a lot of people ask questions about 25A and about the town of Brookhaven or the state, and can they help with some of that construction piece. 25A is a state road, and we actually wrote to them before, as part of this process, to ask about looking at doing a study at the light, because anyone who's here when we do dismissal sees the backup of the buses and the cars, and it's very difficult to get out through the light at 25A. So we actually sent a letter to the state asking them to do an analysis of that light, and they've said that we can, through our architect, send an engineering plan to look at a redesign of that entire entrance, which would be wonderful if we could change our exiting out from that entrance. That would be part of what we do. The state would not pay for that. They told us it's our road, and it's up to us, and we would have to fund that. So that would be part of the project with the roadways. So coming into the campus from 25A and leaving at 25A, which goes right here to the elementary school. Here is a sample of the roadways. Now, this entire presentation is online, so you may not be able to see it very clearly right this minute, but anybody who wants to go back and look at any of these pictures, you can make them look bigger. It's called a gallery of photos of all of these projects, so you can zoom in to look at what the proposal is for the roadway. And if you look along the bottom, that's a new roadway along the bottom area, attached to the parking lots at the elementary school and the middle school. Our elementary school bathrooms are the original bathrooms. We need to update those bathrooms because we have sections you can see by the sinks. Some of the flooring is breaking through, so this needs to be done, the elementary school bathrooms. Again, you can zoom in, and here are some sketches of what it could possibly look like. These are not the actual designs yet, because this is something that would come in afterwards. After, if the bond is passed, we would work with our architect to create a design, but these are samples of what it could possibly look like at the elementary school. Our elementary school roof, our custodians have done an incredible job really keeping our classrooms clean and changing out tiles and taking care of any leaks that kind of come through, and we've been doing patchwork over the years, many, many years. This roof is well over 20 years old, and it's time to be replaced completely. Here are some of the pictures of the tiles in our elementary school. You can see they've put up other tiles to cover. Next is our elementary school library. It's our original library, which our building was built in the late 60s and hasn't been updated. So it's the time to have a more modern library. We need a renovation of that because it's not serving our students the best way with the next generation standards. Here are some designs of what the library could look like. Again, this is not the actual design of our building, but these are some of the ideas that we could possibly use as part of a new rendering. Our playground, now people get upset when I say this, but our playground, Big Toy, is a big part of our district. And Big Toy is falling apart, okay? It is such an old piece of equipment that we can't even get the parts anymore. Over the last couple of years, I've only been here 2 years so far, and each year we've had to try to find pieces to replace different sections, and it takes a long time to get it, and parents get very upset when we have to close it down because it's not safe for children, and we have to wait because the parts are basically almost non-existent at this point. We're getting to the point where we can't fix it anymore. So we really need to look at a new playground design. Our middle school bathrooms, here are some pictures of our middle school bathrooms. And the condition, again, they're the original to the middle school, and that was built in the early 70s, I believe, maybe 1970, I'm not sure the exact year. Do you know the year? 78. Thank you, Mr. Elsesser. Thank you. All right. So again, original bathrooms. Here are some of the conditions you can see, visible signs of wear, aging materials. Here are some designs of what it could possibly be like. Our middle school roof, if you look, you see that silver. It's not supposed to be silver, it's supposed to be brown. So that needs to be repainted. We have sections of the middle school roof. There's a new area of the roof from the building from 2006 that was built. That roof needs to be replaced. And we need to upgrade some of the seams. Here are some of the pictures of the ceiling tiles in the middle school because of that roof area. And our auditorium here at the high school. So over the years, we've reupholstered the best we can, but the seats, just in this one picture alone, we can go downstairs and look at it. The upholstering is falling apart. There's sections of seats that will actually physically come up. If you touch it, you could hold up this actual seat. So we need to redo our seats at the auditorium and our floor. And here at the high school, if you want, while you're here, you can look outside at some of the gutters around the edges. Those need to be adjusted and fixed. Our ice guards have to be upgraded so that we don't have ice crashing down on our students. And our multi-use field, which I saw a ton of people out there today. We use this constantly. Outside groups use this constantly. This needs to be upgraded to turf. Some of the problems we have, I get phone calls sometimes about maintenance and whether we have dandelions showing up in our fields. And, you know, maintenance costs money. And when you have turf, it's less money to maintain. So being able to add that in, regrading that, it'll be a great field for all of the groups. One of the questions we had is, can we raise money that way? Groups are subject to our board policy for using our fields. If it's certain groups, they do have to pay to use our fields. It just depends on the rules and regulations of the group and what type of group is using our field. We also have a list of secondary projects. So should we be able to do all of those projects and still have some funding left over? We didn't want to lose that opportunity to be able to do other projects that need to be done but weren't as a priority as those first ones that I just showed you. So here are some of the other projects we would look at. We still have operable walls in the middle school and the elementary school. That means the walls open and close from room to room. We'd love to replace those. Some of the classroom ceilings in the elementary school have to be replaced. We have masonry and siding fixes that need to be done at the 3 buildings. New lockers at the middle school, those have not been updated. Different pieces of flooring and lighting. So those are just some of the secondary type of projects that if we were to have some funds left over, we would then address these. So a lot of people asked some questions, and I was very happy that they did. We had a Google form, and we still have it. So if anyone out there still has questions, you can certainly put them on that Google form and fill out any questions you have. And I've added them to the frequently asked questions, which are on the website. So on our website, we have all the frequently asked questions. We have the gallery of all the photos. We have information about the funding and what the estimated costs are. So basically, Mr. DeVito, you did a good job explaining what a capital bond is. It's really a way to let us do large-scale improvements that are way more costly than what we can afford through our capital reserve fund or our general fund. So big projects that are multi-million dollars and very costly that we can't afford right now with the general fund is something that we funded with a bond. And again, I went over what the priorities are. We just talked about all of the reconstruction of the roadways, the elementary upgrades, the middle school upgrades, and the high school upgrades. Secondary, What are the secondary projects in the bond? As we had said, if we have the opportunity to do additional improvements, we would then address those. And again, those were listed that you can look up. How did we select these projects? So one of the things I had mentioned is that every district is required to do a building condition survey every 5 years for their district for the state. And we have to keep a running total of what needs to be done in the district and how do we keep our buildings in good condition. We had a list of projects from the last bond that did not pass that we had work on that still needs to be done. Our elementary bathrooms were part of that original proposal. I believe the roadways, part of the roadways were part of that original proposal. So projects that were on that original bond that haven't been able to be addressed are on this bond. And anything that's, obviously, the roof of the elementary school is a priority because the safety and the health of our students comes first. And why are they being proposed now? So a lot of people ask, well, why are we doing this now and it's not a good time? Well, right now the district is able to get funding from the state. We get 78% of funding, state funding, for building projects. So for every dollar that we pay for something, the state gives us 78 cents back on average. So that's right now. Who knows with what's going on in New York State, with the New York State Education Department, how long our rate will stay at 78%. There have been a lot of changes that have come and affected the state, and haven't made any changes yet, but this is an opportunity to do this now before that should change. That's the first thing. Second of all, we have a very good rating for our interest rate, so we would be able to take out the money at an excellent interest rate right now. We're afraid that the costs are going to go up with interest rates, and the cost of materials are just getting more and more expensive. So part of the problem with doing a long-range plan is, even if we get this approved, it can't happen the next day. It takes time for the projects to be approved by the state. Then we have to put out RFPs to get approval for vendors to come in to be whoever the responsible bidder is for the projects, and that's how we choose our vendors. Then, once we get state approval, we can then start the work. So it doesn't happen overnight, it takes a while. And we also have to do the projects when it's an opportune time in the school district. So we certainly can't necessarily do a major project inside the building while students are there. We have to wait till the schools are closed for vacation or during the summer. So those were some of the questions that came up and why it's important to do this now. So how much will it cost? The total amount is $27,993,200. We get that 78% back from the state, or an average of 78% from the state, which is an excellent rate, okay? The averages, now we don't come up with this number. The town of Brookhaven sets the rates for the assessed value of your home. So for the average assessed value of $3,700, and that's what we always use when we do our budget every year when we talk about what your assessed value is, and because that's what the town of Brookhaven uses, it would be approximately $221 per year to cost for the bond, and it's a 15-year bond. So I know one of the questions was how long would it be? It's a 15-year bond. One of the questions I also had was, how do I find out exactly for my house? The town of Brookhaven actually has, I believe, a calculator on their website, so you can go in there and pop in your address and calculate it and try to figure out based on the amount what it would be. What would the increase be for your house? And what are the cost breakdown per priority? So what we did is, because we don't know exactly what we don't have exact costs, because right now things cost a certain amount, but in a year from now when we may be breaking ground on a project, it might be 20% more, 10% more for the materials or for the contractors by the time everything gets approved. So we're not exactly sure how much a specific project will cost. We have a general sense based on what the local other districts have had projects done. We get a sense of local projects, school projects, so those get put together. So we've broken it down by the roofing, siding, and masonry and windows, so that's called the building envelope. That's about $10 million in costs. The interior improvements, which includes bathroom, library, auditorium, flooring, and other updates, is about $5 million. Site work, which is the playgrounds, parking, paving, and roadway repairs, and the athletic facilities, is about just over $7 million. The mechanical and hazmat. So there's mechanical work that has to be done behind the scenes when we do these upgrades. And we also have the chance that when they open up a wall, they may find asbestos, and we have to do asbestos abatement. So we have to calculate for that as well. So those costs would be about $666,000. And the soft costs, because we have work with legal, bonding, engineering, construction management, testing, and contingencies at about $4.6 million. So that's the breakdown of the entire bond. And again, specific information is on our website where you can read about this and why it's broken down that way. So again, why isn't there more detailed? You know, somebody wants to know, let's say, how much exactly is an elementary school bathroom going to cost? Well, we're in the early planning stage. The focus is now on securing the funding needed to complete them, not assigning the final item costs, because we don't know a year from now what exactly the cost would be. We don't know what the market conditions are going to be. Those construction costs for materials and labor can change rapidly. So the specific figures may be accurate right this minute, but won't be accurate 6 months or a year from now. We have to go by law, competitive bidding. So we have to go out every project to bid, and we won't know the actual cost of the items like the roof, the bathrooms, or library until the contractor proposals are received. So we don't have that exact dollar amount yet. And there's also unforeseen conditions, as I mentioned. We may open up a wall and see there's asbestos. You may find there's things that have to be addressed once we open up and start the construction, and we just have to be prepared for contingencies. And we don't want to give you numbers that are false. We want to give you the best numbers we can. We just don't want it to be significantly over what we said. We want to make sure that we're able to do the projects we said we can do. Again, that's why we plan for secondary contingencies, so that if we are we come in much lower, we can do more projects with that funding. Another question is, why do we use bond funding for major repairs like roof replacements instead of including them in the regular school budget? Again, the budget is funded through state aid and local property taxes. Right now, the state hasn't given us an increase in 3 years. So we haven't had an increase in state aid. We also are limited to the tax cap on how much we can collect from taxpayers. So there's a limited amount of money to pay for construction. And at this point, the projects are too large and too costly to include in a single year's operating budget. So what happens if the bond's not approved? This is a big question. The board's going to have to make some decisions on what they want to do. They can possibly, and we haven't discussed that yet because we want to see what happens now. They could possibly put it up for a proposal at the spring budget vote. We could sit and just say, all right, well, we'll try to do the best we can with what we have and not do some of these projects, which it'll take a long time to try to get these projects done with the funding that we currently have. So that would be a challenge that the board would have to undertake and decide what they want to do. How long is the bond repayment? It's 15 years, so that's the amount of the bond. Will the turf field be available for community use? And can the district earn money by renting it to outside organizations? And yes, it will primarily serve our students, but it's available to outside organizations. In accordance with the district's policy for groups using our facilities, they would fill out the forms, and it's possible that we could generate funds through that field. Someone had asked, when was the last bond vote before this current proposal? The last bond vote was in December of 2018. It was a proposal for $25 million, and it did not pass. A question which I had addressed before was, can the town of Brookhaven or New York State help contribute to the cost? 25A is a state roadway. Our roadway, Gertrude Goodwin, is ours, so we would have to pay for any of the changes there. And if the bond is not approved this fall, will there be another opportunity to vote on it, or would the district need to wait several years before trying again? Again, the board is going to have to determine what to do, whether they can address some of the smaller projects, or whether they want to try to put it up again in the spring. Someone had asked about solar panels. This was a great question. Is the district considering adding solar panels to school roofs with this bond proposal, and would the new roof at the elementary school create an opportunity to do this? We are in the middle of doing an energy performance contract, and so we've spoken at this at previous board meetings. What that means is the state, we do an analysis of the buildings. We work with a firm that comes in and looks at how our energy is being used, and are there ways to save money through energy performance. So we actually are in the process of doing that, and part of that will be solar panels, and that there will be change in lighting to LED and changes with our HVAC and our BMS systems. So that's coming whether or not the bond happens. That is part of the energy performance contract, and that doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. So that's funded on its own. So that's something we investigated right away because we wanted to make some of the upgrades save money in the long term for the district without costing the taxpayers' funds. And someone had asked, how are we communicating this information? Well, we've been trying to do the best blitz we can with the media, having our website, a dedicated site with all of our information, updating our FAQs, putting things on Facebook, Instagram. We have signs around the community. We also have an open door. If there's questions, people can call the district and ask. The board is available. We have our meetings coming up. So we are certainly available to answer any questions anybody has. At that, I would turn it over for any community questions that we have. So someone will go with the...
I appreciate the time you put into putting this all together. Just had a question. The $7.4 million in site improvements, what was the estimate you used to put in the turf field between the elementary school and the middle school?
Do we know, Mike, how much we put in for an estimate for the turf? Right.
And I've lived in the community for 30 some odd years now. My kids have been through, years ago now. But I'm just wondering, we've had that field there for quite a while. Grounds crew has been mowing that and all the other fields. Turf fields are not without their own maintenance and costs associated with that. Actually, they can be quite expensive to maintain. So I'm just wondering, what was the priority that the board saw to be able to put a turf field there when that $1 million seems like it could tick off an awful lot of true infrastructure improvements relative to the wish list if you don't quite get done with, if you have excess funds.
Okay, very good question. Thank you very much. So we came up with a list of all projects that have to be done. These are all really important. We're not saying that turf field is the #1 priority. It is a top priority, and we feel that based off of our working with, and again, couple of years worth of research, working with Mike, working with other districts, in trying to determine what is the cost of maintaining the turf field to what is there now, and what is there now actually does cost us more in the long run. Right away, we can take off irrigation, and that cost is gone. It's also much easier to maintain in terms of some of the divots that are created on a safety hazard with that field as well. It's probably one of the #1 fields we see injuries on, actually, for teams that don't even go here, but that rent the space to play. And the answer of would teams from outside organizations pay more to be there, the answer is yes, they do. And all of that, what happens with that income, if we can rent those fields or any of the rooms even, right, whatever we rent out, any of that income helps us offset for any projects we may need to do in the future. It's additional income, which does help. So it doesn't seem like the costs would be less, but they actually are. And Mike, I know you see a lot of this too, if you want to jump in on that as well.
Yeah, it was just my thought that, having seen the kids play there and having grown up, and played on fields as a child that didn't have turf, that $1 million might be better spent on some of the HVAC and true infrastructure for the facilities here, rather than, putting in another turf field. I'm not sure that every district on the island has 2 turf fields, or maybe they all do now. I'm really not sure. But that seems like a big line item for it to be included in the top priorities for the district.
I would also
Right.
say that if we look at the other districts in terms of what they have in terms of turf, they have almost all of their fields turf at this point. We're one of the very few that only has the football, soccer field, lacrosse field, and just up until last year, we only did the inside of the baseball field and the softball field, but most campuses now do have almost all of their facilities in turf.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, if we go to the booster club or if we go to the athletic department, that's what they're going to want. They're going to want everything turfed, right? And we're like, no, not happening. Like, we're not even discussing it. We're just trying to pick one area we know can help the whole community as well as the district. And Mike said it perfect also. It's one of the biggest issues we have is rain, right? If something happens on those rain days, it throws everything off. And now this will enable us to keep things moving a little bit easier and faster also.
Hi. I know that turf doesn't feel like it's a priority, and I totally agree with you. I love grass. I'm old school. But, like, I just drove my daughter from Selden on Boyle Road because her soccer team plays on that turf field right there. So the majority of schools are trending towards having all turf fields on most of their fields. And the one thing we try to do, because softball and baseball will cancel games if it's raining, because of the danger to the players, and also just like it rips up the fields. We did just the infield, and the outfield, we kept it just grass. So we're trying to make really conscious choices with the upgrades that we're doing. We're not getting like super fancy. Like if you go to, I travel, I have 3 kids, they're all in sports, we travel all over the place. And a lot of these schools have like these amazing turf fields, and we're trying to do the same, but with responsible choices, if that makes any sense to you. I get it, like you feel like we ran around in grass our whole lives and did all this stuff, but it is starting to trend that way, and we're trying to do it in a responsible way, trying to do it in a way that's, benefits the kids, lets them play their sports, even if it's like a little bit of rain, and just maintains those fields. Because if it does rain and they play, it can really ruin them. They do play. My son played on Sunday in that downpour.
I've been around here just as long as you, if not a little longer, and our kids have all played and obviously played on that field. And I do agree, but I don't agree. What I mean by that is, and I mean that respectfully, that actually is a very important field, and for 2 things. And I think Dr. Cristione could tell us, and I didn't prompt her this, but how many classrooms would use from the elementary school to go on that field? It could be, because I know you have phys ed, and I know for a fact, because I know some phys ed teachers from the school, they would literally go from the elementary school and they'd have to come all the way over here. So I think it's more of a multi-use field, not just for the, for the lacrosse team afterwards or the football team. These fields are used all day long, and they're used by the different classes. So I think we look at it a little more important, in that. So there are classrooms. And then honestly, athletics is important for this community, just like music is very important. My children are all long gone. So I have the same questions that you have. I would, but listen, we can talk about it. We could talk all about that. But in the end, they're all important, and these facilities are all important. So they're going to be used. But again, what I'm just trying to say is that's not just a sports facility. That's a classroom, and I guarantee it's going to be used by kids from the elementary school. And it's probably a little easier from the kids from the elementary school to go to that field than to go all the way across the campus. So I just wanted to add that it is an important part of the whole school experience. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I think my children is, last children will be in high school now, but I fully support the bond. So this is important. I trust the Board of Education. They have done a lot of due diligence. So even though I pay more money for my property tax, I have no problem. But in terms of the sports, I suppose it's important for school, right? If turf is better, do it. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, one of the problems is that the previous bond failed. So those projects that we planned, what's interesting for a school district that you guys aren't hampered by as a homeowner is that we are dependent on the taxpayers to approve the work. So even our capital projects that we put up at the budget that aren't going to cost extra because we've saved our money, you guys have to approve them every time. So if people come out and vote against it, we can't do the projects. So that's number one. Number two, I understand the government piece, and this has been really fun working and dealing with the construction. But I have to say that the biggest time issue is getting the approval by the state. And that has been, in the past, could take a few more months than maybe normal. They've gotten better. Our recent project that we put up for the vote in May already has state approval, which is like record-breaking. So that's what a lot of times will take the longest. So I don't see it being 5 to 7. I just want to clear, it's not going to be 5 to 7 years. We would probably be able to get started within a year, no doubt, Right, there's phases that would have to be done. Correct. Responsible bidder, lowest responsible. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that's why we built in, that's why it was really hard to tell everybody hard and fast numbers. This is exactly, that's why you don't want to say this is exactly what a roof is going to cost. Because we do build, our architect builds in contingencies and certain, knowing that the costs will go up. So we did build that in. So that while that number looks high, we have built in the contingencies so that we would at least get those first priorities definitely done. That was the priority. Sure. Mhm. 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 Right. So we have to follow the New York State. New York State has changed a lot of regulations over the last 10 years and cracked down on how much we're allowed to save, actually. There's limits on our bank accounts and our percentages. So we're only allowed to hold 4% in an unreserved fund as far as of our total project, our total budget. And they will, yes, they will write us up. So, but while I'm not going to get political now. But while the state can carry 15% of their budget in a savings account, we can only have 4% unrestricted reserves. So that's a problem, and we always use that money, and we try to, if we have extra money, that's how we're able to fund our capital reserve fund. So we have been able to do the projects with that extra money, and those are interest-bearing accounts. So yes, if that answers your question. Yeah, and the comptroller comes down and publishes your school district and says you're very bad because you've gone more than 4%, even though other places have more than 4%. So.
Hi, I have a question kind of related to what he was talking about, and that is about just trying to understand the long-term capital improvement budget process for the district. So, like the roofs have a timeline when you know they have to be replaced. So I'm trying to understand why this wasn't in the capital improvement budget, and if you had surplus, this wasn't going into preparing for the roof to be replaced at 20 years or 25 years or whatever. And I don't know, is there a 25-year capital improvement budget? So like, this is what we're doing in this first 5 years, this is what we're doing in the next 5 years. Because a lot of these things, I feel like, and I heard what you said about the previous bond failing, but it seems like there shouldn't have needed to be that bond either, because if these things were prepared for and saved for and budgeted for, I guess I'm just not understanding like how we got to this point.
Do you want to, because he understands the state regs and rules. Okay. Do you want a microphone? Yeah, take the microphone so they can hear you.
Thank you. So years ago, the state education department functioned completely differently when it came to building aid for schools. So if you did $1 million worth of capital improvements this year, next year, if you're getting 78%, you would get $780,000 back next year, which meant if you wanted to do $1 million next year, you only had to pay $220,000 for it because you got $780 back from the state. That was nice and simple. Years ago, they decided that was too expensive for them and they'd like to kick the can down the road. So now they pay you back over 15 years. So if we spend $1 million this year, you're going to get 78% of that money back in 15 equal payments over the next 15 years. It used to start when you borrowed the money. Now it doesn't start until you're 100% finished with the project and closed out. So it doesn't even start when you are finished spending the money. It starts the year after that. So they figured out a way to save themselves money as time goes on. So when that occurred, that's when bond issues became a thing, because I had some districts 25 years ago that would have $6 or $7 or $8 million in their annual budget. And if they got a 50% building aid, they would get $4 million back the next year, and then they could fund the following $8 million with only $4 million. Now you can't do that. So bond issues became mandatory at that point. And what most districts are doing is they're bonding, and then when this bond retires, or let's say most school districts do a bond issue about every 5 years. So if you do a bond issue 15 years from now or 15 years from project completion, and they won't all finish at the same exact time because we'll start them at different times, but in a 15-year cycle, theoretically, if we did it all in 1 year, 15 years from now, that bond issue would be paid off. You could re-borrow that money, and it doesn't change the tax rate at all. So the bond issue that you had years ago that went down, you did have retiring debt at that point, and that money probably could have been borrowed for free or almost nothing. But since it failed, that money came out of the budget, so it's gone, and now you're trying to put some back in. So the creation of bond issues is something that caused because the state changed the way they do things. And when they did that, it really started this whole process of being bonds versus large capital improvement budgets in every school district every year. And that's what really created the situation that we're in now with bonds and needing bonds to fix your things versus being able to just say, well, this year we'll do this, and next year we'll do that, and next year we'll do that. Because if we spend $3 million doing a portion of a roof this year, we're not getting $2.5 million back next year. We're getting $2.5 million back in 15 years. So if we borrow the money that we're going to pay back over 15 years, and we're getting our state aid over 15 years, is actually the cheapest way for the school district to manipulate this process. So I don't want to speak to your budget specifically, but in most school districts' budgets, they will have a capital line item, meaning we're going to do this. Like I said, schools used to have millions of dollars in their capital budget every year, but it doesn't make financial sense to do that anymore, because if I spend that money this year, I don't get the money back for 15 years. So the capital amounts became less, and that's how bond issues were created. So I'm sure you have a capital line item in your budget every year with small projects where, let's say, you could do a bathroom, and you could fit that in with the money that you have in your capital budget, but you can't necessarily do all the bathrooms. So when you're planning bigger projects, it makes sense to do a bond. You probably also have an emergency reserve, so that if something happens and your boiler gives out, you have the district can declare an emergency and then get that project repaired with their emergency reserve funds. So that's the way things have changed and become, is that the annual capital improvements have gotten smaller because it does not fund itself the next year. And everybody always had an emergency reserve, so that if something goes wrong, they're just completely unanticipated, you can fix that. And everybody is sort of headed towards bond issues. And it's been that way for at least a decade, that the state is changing the way they do things, so that you have to plan further ahead and then think, okay, we're going to have to do this. Most districts, if I walk into a school district, most districts I walk into have $100 million worth of stuff to do, but that doesn't mean they're going for a $100 million bond. You can't do them all at once. So, and to your point, if you do everything at the same time, then it all goes bad again at the same time. If you phase them in, then okay, so a few years from now, maybe you'll do a few other projects, and then a few other projects. And if you continue having retiring debt, once you're set, and you just keep reborrowing the same money, like having a lease payment on your car. At the end of your 3 years, you turn the car in, I get a new car, the lease payment's the same, nothing's changed. And that's kind of the plan.
Mike, I'll jump in. So the excellent questions, right, and valid concerns. We have to have a starting point, though, right, before we can talk about, well, what if down the road? What if in 5 years? What if in 10 years? We can't look past anymore because we know what happened. What happened in the past got us to where we are today, which is what's making us make this decision of we need to act, okay? On the capital reserve projects, it becomes very difficult to to create a plan and keep that plan. And what do I mean by that? When we have a cap of 4% and the state not giving us any additional aid for 3 years, so that's zero, okay? In the past 3 to 5 years, health insurance has gone up on a family plan here from $27,000 to almost $45,000. That's operating, right? So that's taking away from any additional monies that could be left over. And that number is not going to come down, right? We all know how much our utilities bills are. Look at the size of this building, right? We feel it just as much, right? So we try and create plans, right? Of, okay, here's our future quote-unquote cap project list of what we would like to do, okay? The past couple of years, we've been okay to try and pull out. This year, we had to stop that plan because one whole portion of the elementary school, the facade and the bricks were falling off. So we had to stop and deal with that emergency, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to put a pool in my backyard this summer, but then your bathroom collapses from a pipe burst, and at the same time, the roof goes. So there goes that pool because you have to fix these other things that are more of a priority. And unfortunately, we can create that list of what we want to do, but it's very hard to always maintain that because we don't know what's going to come up as an emergency. There was also some other things that the state threw out us that we had to do and upgrade. Okay, so technology had to get upgraded. That wasn't by choice. It was by a force, and that was after budget season. So the monies weren't even allocated properly for that, but we had to use that. So again, that's taking away the funds for that. But this would be that starting point for us to then say and create that plan. Okay, year one, we're doing elementary bathrooms, and we're doing X, Y, and Z. Okay, so now in 7 to 10 years, you know that life cycle, and that can be created. I think that some of what the district has also done is by bringing Dr. Criscione on, we now have a deputy superintendent. There's a lot of additional things internally that are giving us more resources to create these roadmaps as well. And it's a hard answer, but I hope that helps a little bit of it's tough. We're handcuffed, right? But we also know the needs of what's now. So we can't look past anymore, right? And even we get stuck doing that. Well, what if it would have passed? So but this will start that path of a roadway, right? And we have to have a starting point, and this is it.
I think I just wanted to speak on the behalf of parents who have small kids in the district. So we have a 4th grader, a 1st grader, and we have a 3-year-old who'll be coming in, hopefully UPK. And so I want to speak from the perspective of saying, I know that sounds like a lot of money to folks, and we're doing our best in our household to always find ways to save money and put projects off and only address what's necessary. But when I come home and my 4th grader says, like, he turns a faucet on in the bathroom and no water comes out. These bathrooms really are scary and dangerous for the kids. And I would just ask that the kicking of the can comment was made earlier, that if we keep kicking the can, this is going to continue to get worse and worse and cost more and more. And as some of you with other small kids in the district, or maybe some of you, I know a lot of people who their grandkids now have come back to this district. So, I'm sure those of you who have kids that are grown now and they want to bring their kids back here, they're going to be faced with these issues if they're not addressed right now. So I'm just pleading that you consider these things. And I don't want folks to get stuck on maybe one item that they might not feel like they can support, but throw the rest away that are really critical to helping our kids be in a safe learning environment, in a place where they know that things work for them and that we know will continue to work for at least the next 10, 15, 20 years. Just like, we just redid a bathroom, and I'm sure in 20 years we're gonna have to redo it again. But you know, it's the degradation, it's the degradation of just use, right? So it's to be expected. And I want to say thank you to the board for doing this, and I hope that we're not in the same position again in 8 years, looking down and saying, well, that bond didn't pass, and now we're here again, and it's worse, and we've only been able to do X, Y, Z because, you know, we only had this amount of funds available every year. I also wanted to just mention that I do wish that the communication, especially to our community members and our friends and neighbors that are older without kids that are currently going through the school, were more aware. I have talked to a few that had no idea that this was going on. Maybe they threw the mailer away. They're not on social media, and it seems like a short period of time, maybe 6 to 8 weeks to get the word out. I also wanted to find out if you spoke with other districts that have had bonds come up for vote, what were their strategies, their communication plans, what was the runway, how much time that they devoted to trying to get the word out and the bond to pass, and really, like, I think someone mentioned, like, do other school districts do these bonds? Yeah, they do. I have a good friend who's a principal in another district, and it was a huge community effort, but they were able to get it done.
So I'm going to answer the first part, respond, and then if you want to answer about the community with the bonds. So I want to thank you very much for that. The bathrooms are a really big issue, right? And I got yelled at a little bit last time for saying that some of those floors are kind of dangerous and maybe somebody can fall through. Joke, not a joke, right? But there's something that really needs to be done. And one of the biggest concerns at the elementary school, too, is, and this is a top priority, is that big toy, right? Because those kids need that activity, right? But does anybody here know what one of the best days on campus is? Anybody have an idea? It's the last day of school when the seniors go back, okay? And they do a parade around campus and they go to Big Toy. And that's where they end their year. That's where it culminates, and that's what we're about, okay? We are extremely close to closing Big Toy. And that's not something we want to do, but we can't put the lives in jeopardy of these kids, of getting hurt. It's just not possible. The other thing I will say that we have done is, and this will probably get me in trouble too, but we have done a very good job at making the PTO, the Friends of the Arts, and the Booster Club all very happy with this bond. Why? Because we weren't being nitpicky. We weren't pulling and saying, okay, we're going to give it. No, this was a very needs-oriented bond. And it kind of speaks to exactly what you're saying of what we're trying to do to help all of the community and the campus. So some very important things just to keep in mind of how we did this, again, not just with us, but with all the organizations and parents and support and voices and thoughts to really try and make it as sound as possible for everybody. If you want to address
Sure.
the schools with the
addressing
bonds.
the bond and the communication, and I'll talk about, you mentioned other districts. Every district does things slightly differently. I worked in multiple districts, and they did things totally differently. Some had, depending on the type of bond and what they were doing, different strategies. One thing that we were hampered with is that we cannot do a vote between October and December. So we were really hampered because the voting machines we're not allowed to get because they need them for the real election. So we had to do it either in September or in the winter. And trying to do it in January, February, when a lot of our community maybe isn't here, didn't seem fair. So we purposely tried to do it in September, at the end, the latest in September that we could, so that we could still use the voting machines, but still have enough time to start getting the word out over the summer and during the month of September. I would say we have been just blanketing with signs, and there's limits to how much we can get to people who aren't on social media or in the community. We're doing the parent square because that's how we communicate to families. We did a mailing so that everybody in the community would get something. We didn't have to, but we wanted to. We want everyone to see about this and about the bond and as much information as possible. So, we went to the Civic Association meeting the other night so we could speak there and hopefully get a different demographic of people. So really trying to get the word out the best way possible.
What about things like having people volunteer from the community who could pass out the flyers at...
We have students doing that, actually,
okay,
right
at
now.
like local grocery stores and the libraries.
Yep. we have some of our students going for credit,
Oh, that's
earning
great.
credit by doing that, by going to the local places for that.
Yeah, just further, I think communication is important. Just I think maybe list the major benefits of having this bond. So just the state paid 80%. How can you get so much money? I think it's a rare opportunity for the school. A few benefits and then future safety. Well, probably 3 or 4, 5 points. Probably ask students to bring the flyer back to their parents. Maybe the student will be empowered, so they can talk to the parents.
Thank you. And our doors are always open for any questions, if anyone has any. We'll have a board meeting next week, and certainly, with somebody else? You can always call the office, and we're happy to talk. If you don't want to raise your hand and speak now, you can always call me in my office. I'm happy to chat about anything.
I'm on the opposite spectrum of you. You have kids, young kids. I've got old kids. I've got one left in the district. She's a junior. We've gone through a lot of different boards. I've been to a lot of different board meetings and see how they budget. And I think for the bang for the buck and what we need done, at this point, this is the most efficient way to do it for the taxpayer. And I'm really glad to see that these projects are being planned well and being tax sensitive, because I think that the school is really important for the community. It's kind of the lifeblood of the attraction for living here and our property values. Because if you look at any real estate listing in Mount Sinai, somewhere in that listing it says desirable Mount Sinai School District. And that is a huge attraction to why people want to live here. And I was just talking with my neighbor right before I came about the bond, and they said, yeah, the school district is why we moved here. That's the whole reason for Mount Sinai. So there's probably some people here that are unsure about the bond. You may have neighbors that are unsure about it. But if the school goes down and isn't performing well and is falling apart, that's going to affect all of our property values as well as the education of our kids. So, even though my time in the school is nearing an end, I think this is a really good thing for the continued education and the investment in our community and our kids' futures.
But I don't think, like I said, I'm not arguing the bond either. As far as I'm not arguing this is great. All the stuff that you guys are doing is fantastic. And the only thing I think I would ask, as somebody who you're nearing your end of your kids being through here, and I'm literally just beginning as well as these nice people in front of me. The transparency that you put into this bond proposal and telling us about the state, all that kind of stuff, can we expect for somebody that's in my position the same amount of transparency so we know how we got to this point? Because you're right, we said it, can't go back, but we got here with letting things go in the past, or we didn't address this now, and I'm sure the state has come in and messed that up. I'm sure that's happened. But can we expect the same transparency, or at least more, from here on out? Because this is great. I really don't have an opposition to this. My opposition just comes from, not even opposition, just my skepticism comes from where is it going to go from here?
Right. So what we've been doing at every board meeting, we've actually been updating the community on our current projects and like what the status is on each, because we have 3 of them going at the same time from over 3 years, and so that's been something I've added into the presentations to report out to the community exactly what's been done, what we're still working on, what still needs to be done. So that is something the board is very supportive of, is continuing that process. And one of the things we're looking at is building a dedicated web page with that bond and putting the information there so it's available if you're not
Updates,
comfortable.
stuff like that. Okay,
exactly.
great. Awesome. Thank you.
And just on the transparency part, you know, I'm the guy that shows up to all the board meetings. Well, most of them. I missed a couple recently. Sorry.
Yeah, you weren't here this summer, Brad.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I was traveling for lacrosse. But regularly, there's only about 4 people that show up with any regularity to the board meetings that are every month. I wish people would show up. And, you know, I'm the president of the Civic Association, and every time we have a meeting, we say, please go to the school board meetings, they're important. But what's really nice about how the board has been set up for a while is that they tell us everything that's going on. And when there's a project, Dr. Criscione gives us updates regularly on what's spent, what the status is. And, you know, I'm the annoying guy that always has like 4 or 5 questions for them. And when I ask them questions, they've got answers like that. So they're, in my experience, the school board is really, really transparent about what's going on. They have community Q&A sessions, they're open, as opposed to some other school boards that are very closed and don't invite questions. So first, my experience, they're very good about information. And second, please come to the board meetings. I'd like to have a little company there.
It was our turn. Do you want to close it out? It's like the games. It's like close it out.
Okay, so we appreciate everybody coming down. With no other questions, you know, we'll stick around if anybody does want to talk individually. But you know, we do have a board meeting next week, so that is on next Wednesday. We also have the following week is the vote, so we appreciate you coming out, supporting us. Hopefully all of your questions are answered. Again, Dr. Criscione said, feel free to give her office a call. You know, we're viable throughout the community and throughout the district. When we're here, stop us. We'll be more than happy to talk to you. And we look forward to getting this passed and moving quickly. And I know Mike's not going to want to hear this, and Dr. Criscione isn't, but that Friday morning when it passes, we're going to be eagerly waiting to get going and, you know, hopefully have the first shovel in hand by April. Mike, that good? So hopefully we'll have everybody's support, and we appreciate you coming out. Thank you very much, and have a safe night.